In a strange mountain forest, there are rocks and low-hanging clouds all around. There are also wild and colorful creatures. They have wings, horns, tails, fierce teeth, and bulging eyes. They're also unnaturally colorful. First, a donkey with butterfly wings. Then, a lion with the head of an eagle. A crowd of voices repeats a nonsense word. Then, another mysterious creature appears, a rooster with bull's horns. Suddenly, it becomes clear what the voices say. Alebrije, alebrije, alebrije. Just then, the 30-year-old Pedro Linares wakes up from his fever dream, taking note of what he had just seen. After he recovers from his illness, he begins to recreate the creatures using papier-mâché and cardboard. A cartonero by trade, Linares is able to easily replicate the creatures he saw in his dream. A fan of Cartonería, the famous artist Diego Rivera would often visit Cartonería workshops, including Linares' very own workshop. Upon seeing his newest creations, Rivera was one of the first to buy them. Rivera and his wife, Frida Kahlo, commissioned more alebrijes, and little by little, the creations became more striking with bright colors and patterns. Although a modern creation, alebrijes draw on various supernatural creatures, art forms, and mythology from Mexico's indigenous and European past. They're the end result of hundreds of years of mestizaje, both in Mexico City, where they began made out of paper and cardboard, and in the state of Oaxaca, where wooden alebrijes have overtaken their cartonería counterparts. Born from a dream, alebrijes have permeated popular culture worldwide. Alebrijes show the power of the imagination, but more importantly, alebrijes show the beauty that arises from the mestizaje of Mesoamerican and Spanish cultures. The creator of alebrijes, Pedro Linares Lopez, was born in 1906 and later worked in La Merced neighborhood near Mexico City's historic center and the same craft that his father and grandfather before him did, cartonería. Cartonería is a traditional paper-based handcraft in Mexico. Common creations include piñatas, skeletons, masks, and of course, the famous Judas figures burned during the Holy Week. Knowingly or not, Linares was influenced in creating alebrijes by pre-Hispanic art that typically featured brightly colored images and creatures that were often fantastical and macabre. His New World influences included dragons in Chinatown and gargoyles on churches throughout Mexico City. He was also likely influenced by contemporary Mexican artists like Julio Ruelas and lithographer Jose Guadalupe Posada. In 1975, filmmaker Judith Bernowski made a documentary about the work of Linares, which brought attention to him and his craft. And in 1990, Linares received Mexico's National Award for Sciences and Arts in honor of his career and his contribution to Mexican popular art. Linares died in 1992 at the age of 85. His children and grandchildren carry on the family craft of cartonería and continue to make alebrijes to this day. Linares' alebrijes have been displayed throughout Mexico and internationally. Cartonería is a traditional Mexican craft with roots stretching back to pre-Hispanic times. Mesoamerican cultures developed paper using the bark of a fig tree called amate and from fibers of a maguey flower. After the Spanish conquest in the 16th century, the Spanish, of course, banned Mesoamerican paper production because of its use in religious rituals. However, this ban was never completely carried out, and the production of amate paper continues till this day, particularly in parts of Puebla and Veracruz. A type of proto-cartonería appeared during the early colonial period with layers of paper glued together using animal glue. Modern papier-mâché was introduced to Mexico around the 17th century as a way to make religious figures for the Catholic Church, and was mostly developed in central Mexico. Shortly after that, the creation of these paper figures became a trade unto itself, with the work dominated by certain families. Due to the cheap materials used, like old newspapers, boxes, and crepe paper, cartonería was especially popular among poorer indigenous and mestizo communities. Sometimes called cartón piedra for its rigidness, Cartonería figures can be made for religious holidays and annual events. And in the 20th century, of course, the creation of Cartonería Alebrijes by Linares were recognized as works of art. Paper alebrijes are a whimsical mishmash of various animals. Outlandish and bizarre, at times they can also be right down silly. Like in Linares' dream, they can have claws, fangs, wings, and horns. Their grotesque faces are balanced out by their vibrant colors and intricate, mesmerizing patterns. While Cartonería overall has become less popular, various government and cultural institutions are working to preserve it. Although originally from central Mexico, several Mexican states have their own versions of alebrijes. In the southern state of Oaxaca, alebrijes made out of copal wood have overtaken their Mexico City counterparts in popularity over the last 3 decades. In the central valleys of Oaxaca, wood carvings of animals date back to the Zapotecas. First, totems of local animals were carved for luck or for religious purposes. At times, they were also used as hunting decoys. Finally, wood figures could be carved as toys for children, a tradition that continues to this day. Wooden animal carvings were likely inspired by the idea of nahuales. A nahual can refer either to a person who can transform into an animal through brujeria, or to the connection each of us has to our very own spirit animal. This animal acts as our protector and guide, so obviously you would want to buy an alebrije associated with your own spirit animal or nahual. The carving of a wooden alebrije piece can take anywhere from a few hours to several months, depending on the size and details of the piece. Carving is done with simple tools such as machetes, chisels, and knives. The basic shape of the figure is usually hacked using a machete, then a series of smaller knives are used for the finer details. After the carving, the figure is left to dry. Depending on the size and thickness of the wood, this can take several days or several months. Copal wood is susceptible to insects, so pieces are often soaked in gasoline and they're sometimes baked to ensure that all bugs have been killed. As the figure dries, there's usually some cracking. These cracks are filled in with smaller pieces of copal wood and a sawdust resin mixture before the figures are painted. Traditional wood carvings were originally painted with natural dyed paints. These were made using lime juice, pomegranate seeds, zinc, indigo, and more. Since the mid-1980s, however, most carvers switched to acrylics, which don't fade as easily. However, some artisans still use natural paints, as they have a more rustic look that some customers prefer. The painting is generally done in 2 layers. First, a solid undercoat, and then a multicolored geometrical design on top. The top design is based on ancient Zapoteca writing and typically has a meaning of its own. Unfortunately, the success of wood carving for alebrijes has caused an unsustainable drain of wild copal trees in Oaxaca. These difficulties have led to a black market of copal as carvers continue to use the wood for their craft. Today, a large number of stores in and around the city of Oaxaca sell alebrijes, and it's estimated that more than 150 families in the area make a living off alebrijes. The 3 main towns associated with making alebrijes are San Antonio Arazola, San Martin Tilcajete, La Unión Tejalaplan. Now world famous, collectors fight for unique wooden alebrijes, and larger, more elaborate pieces can sell for thousands of dollars. Since 2007, the annual Alebrije Parade has been sponsored by the Museo de Arte Popular in Mexico City. The parade typically features more than 100 giant alebrijes made out of wood, cardboard, wire, and other materials. At the end of the parade, the pieces are lined up along El Paseo de la Reforma for judging and awards. In 2021, 2 giant alebrijes made by Oaxacan artisans Jacobo Angeles and his wife Maria del Carmen Mendoza were installed at New York's Rockefeller Center as part of a Dia de Muertos celebration that lasted 12 days. Notably, filmmakers working on the 2017 film Coco visited Angeles' workshop as an inspiration for the alebrijes scene in the film.
Are those alebrijes?
Most importantly, however, many of the Oaxacan alebrijes seen in this video are from their workshop. Thanks guys! Originating from a fever dream, alebrijes show the power of imagination and creativity, and how the culture we're surrounded by nurtures both. The mestizaje of the indigenous and Spanish has shaped Mexican culture time and time again. And alebrijes are no exception. In them, we see the art and mythology of Mesoamerican cultures blended with European cultures, which arrived in the 16th century. And today, because of this mestizaje, alebrijes have become a unique art form celebrated worldwide. And if you don't know, now you know. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos, please subscribe. Let us know what mestizo tradition you want us to cover next. Thank you so much for watching.